Welcome. So I'm Dan Fitzpatrick, and I'm the president for Citizens here in the Mid-Atlantic region. And it really is always great to be here in Pittsburgh with so many familiar faces and some new friends on this really critical issue. And it is great to see the turnout face-to-face as we move past this really challenging time of the pandemic and getting to where we are all re-engaging with one another as safely as possible. But this is the critical issue as we talk about workforce. What we do at Citizens, we try to convene and connect as it takes all of us to move the needle forward on truly inclusive and diverse economic growth, where we're making sure that we have the workforce of the future as well as the entrepreneurs of the future. And it all starts here with these partnerships between our great not-for-profit partners, educational leaders, as well as the corporate community. So this is really terrific. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to the leaders participating in this panel discussion today. I'll go in no particular order, but Bruce Van Saun. Bruce is my boss, and he is the chairman and CEO of Citizens Financial Group, has been a respected leader in the financial services industry for nearly 3 decades. While he's been to Pittsburgh many times since becoming CEO of Citizens, it's always good to welcome him into the market. So welcome Bruce, who is no stranger, again, proud Bucknell grad, so a lot of time in Pennsylvania in his career, both academically and in banking. Janis Burley Wilson. Janis is the president of the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, another of our city's vibrant arts and cultural institutions. She'll both moderate and participate in today's discussions. Now, really needs no introduction, but Esther Bush. Esther is recently former president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh and serves as the region's moral and practical compass on issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. She also happens to be one of the favorite people in Pittsburgh and a true gem for our city and region. And so as Esther promised, she may be retiring, but she's not going away from these critical issues.
This is true.
Robert Cherry. Robert is the new CEO of Partners for Work and a nationally recognized expert on workforce development. He'll be a leading voice and an actor in Pittsburgh's recovery from the pandemic, while also helping to pave the way for creating and driving the region's workforce of the future. Esther Mellinger Stief. Esther is a teacher by trade and serves as the executive director of the Crossroads Foundation, which provides students with access to quality education, leading to measurable impacts on the life trajectories of their scholars. So, as you know, we've been here firsthand in Pittsburgh over the years. This workforce development issue is such a critical topic for all of us. This is about those sustaining skills. Again, we need entrepreneurship. That's what's going to drive this economy forward. It's celebrating our diversity and inclusion, getting everyone involved in this economy. This is just such a terrific day. So, but before we get the panel discussion, I'd like to invite Bruce up to say a few words. So Bruce, please.
Thank you, Dan. A special thank you to our partners here, Partner for Work, Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, the Crossroads Foundation, and August Wilson African American Cultural Center. It's remarkable to see how different organizations can come together to create meaningful impact in our communities. Western Pennsylvania, in particular Pittsburgh, is an important market for Citizens as we continue to gain market share here. As a corporate citizen here in Pittsburgh, we are also very aware of the struggles that the city has faced. Helping strengthening the communities that we serve is at the heart of the Citizens' Credo, and doing so will only be possible if it includes a sustained effort around ensuring that the region's workforce is equipped for the challenges and the opportunities facing Pittsburgh both today and going forward. We know that having a good job is more than just about getting a paycheck, so the programs we support, both in the community and within the bank, focus on enhancing people's abilities to meet their needs, pursue their goals, and advance their careers. I gave an address here in the city a couple of years ago, and at the time I remarked that in much the same way that the steel industry made Pittsburgh an industrial power in the 1800s, the city's universities are now producing technology talent that is fueling economic growth and development and re-energizing Pittsburgh's neighborhoods. In fact, Pittsburgh tech labor force has increased by about 11% since 2015. And that's good progress. However, with the disruption wrought by the pandemic here in Pittsburgh and in every city across our footprint, it remains crucial that the private sector, the public sector, and the nonprofit community are working together to ensure that workers have the skills they need to thrive in this ongoing and accelerating transformation. At Citizens, we face the same issues as any other employer in this environment, and we're laser focused on doing the work necessary to make sure that we have the right people with the right skills to serve our customers today and well into the future. In our view, we can only thrive when our communities thrive. And to that end, we're partnering with organizations across the footprint that support low and moderate income individuals by providing the tools that they need to compete for jobs that provide the foundation for long-term economic security. We've also doubled down on our commitment to accelerate the pathway to homeownership for low and moderate income borrowers, equipping these individuals with the essential building blocks for economic confidence, financial security, and long-term stability when they need it most. We're focused on providing people with accessibility to the economic opportunities that they deserve. We know that we're more than a bank. We are first and foremost citizens together. So with that background, let me proceed to make a few brief announcements regarding our support for workforce development. First, I'm pleased to say that we continue to support the work that Partner for Work does each and every day on workforce development with an additional grant of $45,000 for the BankWorks program. BankWorks offers an intensive 8-week training program to help provide a gateway for entry-level employment opportunities within banking. Citizens was proud to work with Partner for Work and others to bring this program to Pittsburgh. In addition to providing funding, our colleagues provide adjunct instruction along with interviewing skills and employment placement. Citizens has made several hires from this program over the years. Second, we'll be helping to support the Community College of Allegheny County as it adapts in how it provides workforce development and training across all of its campuses and centers, impacting about 45,000 students a year in the region. Citizens will join with other regional employers to partner with the college as it takes a more intentional approach towards linking education and training to the needs of employers. Third, I want to acknowledge that we recently recognized the Crossroads Foundation as the most recent Citizens Champion in Action in Western Pennsylvania in the category of social equity. We award grants through this program twice a year, and this marks the 49th grant that we've announced here over the years, providing nearly $1.5 million to recipients. And lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't sneak in a heartfelt congratulations to my fellow panelist, Esther Bush, on her recent retirement from the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh. Esther has been a true leader in advocating equality and social equity and is said to be Pittsburgh's moral compass. Congratulations, Esther.
Thank you.
Okay, I think with that, Janis, you're going to take over as moderator. Or Dan, are you up first?
Bruce, thanks for those terrific remarks, and again, this great session on career-connected learning, which is so critical. So with that, further, Janis Burley Wilson, I'll pass the agenda over to you to do your double duty as moderator and panelist. Thanks, Janis.
Thank you, and thanks to Citizens for inviting me to moderate this very timely and important discussion about trends in the workforce development space. Good morning to all of you watching virtually and to all of our esteemed guests. So let's get started. The first question that we're going to ponder is this. The COVID-19 pandemic has been extremely difficult across sectors and across the country. We're surviving both the effects of the health pandemic and the ongoing social justice and racial crisis. And there is a renewed effort to address racial inequality in our country. How are leaders thinking differently about equity of opportunity and addressing these matters in their sector? Why don't we start with you, Esther Bush? Two Esthers.
Yes, we were just saying how fabulous it is to have two Esthers.
Yes.
That's right. That is highly unusual.
Yes.
But let me share that what the pandemic has done has underscored where the African American is in our society as it relates to the workplace. Because when you think of essential workers, look at the list. Let's leave aside some of the higher ranked individuals and let's just look at the African American community is oversaturated as it relates to hourly employees, as it relates to those individuals who might not be very up on high-tech industries and working from home. Computer, how do I turn it on? I don't have one. How am I going to help my kids? It's just a snowballing impact. We also want to look at where they are from a health-related perspective. And so when you discuss African Americans in this pandemic, we need to be very honest about where we as a society has placed the African American in terms of their opportunity to compete successfully and to be included and to maneuver something as great as a pandemic. If I were not surviving before, how am I surviving today? And so as the Urban League, I must also quickly add, we're not only talking about employment, but we are talking about basic standards of living, including food insecurity, housing, utilities, et cetera. Yes, you will hear more about this later, but I'll stop there.
Great. Would anyone else like to comment on that question, on what people are doing to address those inequities in this
Sure,
very difficult time?
I'll take a shot, but I think the whole occurrence of the pandemic brought out a lot of changes. Certainly, business models were moving very rapidly towards online sales and digital business models, and so companies have had to adjust their agenda to reflect those new realities. So the need for different skills is increasing, not waning. And then further, there's now a labor tightness as the economy rebounds and there's more demand. Companies are begging to fill shortages in people. So it really creates a great opportunity, I think, to go back and re-skill people. And those people who, as you say, were hourly workers and maybe they were hit the hardest in the pandemic. There's opportunities here to work with companies, with nonprofit partners, with public sector, and the education system to find new paths to upskill those people, to position them for that sustainable incomes in the future and good career paths. And I think banks in particular, because we have deep relationships with those set of partners on the skills side, but we also cover companies who we talk to lots of them about what their needs are. And we can see pretty clearly, not only our own, but our company's needs directionally, what skills need to be filled, need to be imparted on people to create those jobs. And so convening and having that dialogue and then setting up programs to skill people to take those positions, it's exciting. It's really exciting times. I think it's a great breakthrough opportunity to really make an impact here.
Great.
I'd like to weigh on that real quick. It's like you said, it's also presenting some opportunities. And a lot of those opportunities are, skills versus kind of these educational thresholds that we've had with certain positions. Right. So what we hear companies saying because of the labor tightness is that instead of that, 4-year degree is an associate's and 2 years worth of experience. Is that acceptable right now? Yeah. Or a high school diploma. And that's opening the market up for a lot of people who couldn't have gotten that job in the past. So we're definitely seeing as the labor market tightens, companies are reassessing the real skills that it actually takes to do the job, as opposed to these thresholds that they've had there that have moved people off. They moved their resumes off before. These are now viable candidates now. So.
Great.
And college, as you say, isn't for everybody.
Right.
There can be really great career paths, and that apprenticeship program that works well in other countries like Germany.
Yes.
We should be moving in that direction, create more opportunities.
Absolutely.
I think I will just add that Crossroads works with young people. And so as we're confronted with the inequities that already existed, a spotlight was shown on them. Young people need more than lip service, and they need more than just kind of a nod. Yeah, it's rough for you. Yeah, it's rough out there. And so the opportunity in this situation has been to create these pathways, tangible pathways for them, so that they are in fact valued. They can see a path, they can see a place for themselves. It's not enough to just put Band-Aids on the issue anymore. And I think that's why it's lovely that we're having this conversation, and it provides an opportunity for us all to move forward.
Great. Robert, in terms of workforce needs, what skills and needs do you see emerging here in Pittsburgh, and how do we prepare as a region?
It's a great question. And, you know, every sector has skills needs. How the sector approaches those skills needs are what we're seeing a lot of innovation around. And one thing that was mentioned was the BankWorks program. So a BankWorks program, or the model, should be replicated in every sector. So what we have is financial institutions came together. They recognized that they all had a need for entry-level workers. There was an agreed upon industry-led curriculum that they came together and agreed on. Here are the standards that we need. Folks enter into the cohort, they come out, and then all the banks are hiring these sets of people. And our last cohort, we had 100% placement, going to different financial institutions. So we need to replicate that model across, manufacturing and the skills trades, all of those, where industry comes together and sets the standards. And then we have a trainer, and then they hire from that kind of those cohorts. The second that we hear over and over again, and this is very old, is soft skills. And soft skills are very hard skills, but in a tight labor market, they are super important. It's not just waking up and getting to work on time. There's much harder skills. There's reasonability, adaptability, communication, and this is a market where it's tight on the front end, but it's also tight on the back end. So you want to keep employees just as much as you want to bring them through the door. And folks are asking different questions in interviews right now. What type of work environment? How inclusive is it? And that's what's keeping employees and keeping employers stabilized right now.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Sure. I want to weigh in basically because the first example that you gave with the banking industry, and going back to the first question, we have to do things at scale. Mm-hmm. The Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh meets everybody where they are and try to give them the confidence, skills, contacts, et cetera, to go where they need to be. In preparing for this conversation, I learned that we have 56 solid partners. And partnerships are critical because none of us can do it alone. But I have some partnerships where I can place 4 or 5 people. I have other partnerships where I might be able to place 15, 20. But we need industry-wide partnerships, and we need industry-wide commitments. When I look at the area of technology, I am so proud of the work that the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh has done, reaching out, training parents, grandparents, et cetera, that never had turned on a computer before. And I can share with you grandparents that are helping their grandchildren. But at the same time, we need industries to realize, and I can't help but think about the technology industry. Very quickly stated, nationally, the African American community makes up about 7% of the technology industry. Here in Pittsburgh, we are less than 1%. less than 1%. The Pittsburgh Technology Council is working hand in hand with us. The Urban League has dollars from Google and several other companies that the National Urban League pushes our way. But we have to be very real, as more and more technology companies and opportunities are moving to Pittsburgh, including with the colleges and universities. Training 4 or 5 people in this segment, that's cute, and please keep it coming. But we need to be able to measure all of the kids that are in your program. Why can't we work collectively and say we graduated 25, 50, 75, 100, and all of them were placed? And so I am saying, and citizens, you have been a good friend, good friend. But we need you to help us push, and so we can say 50, 75, 100, 200, 500 people were trained, were placed, were brought in. Our numbers just need to grow larger than they are.
I comment on both of what you said, which is very interesting, but you know, there's a ground level skill that you can invest in. I think the banking industry is doing that, maybe where the technology should be doing it, but we're funding, you know, Black Girls Code, we're funding
That's right.
this, we're making investments
Yes,
so
you
that
are.
you capture people young and then you put them into the pipeline so they have the skills to succeed. But we're also prepared to hire those people, just like the program for entry-level people, customer-facing people. We need coders too, and so anyway, I think the banking industry is probably on the front foot on all of this.
Yes, I would
Maybe
agree.
some other industries need to catch up a bit, but you know, when you talk about the industries, you know, manufacturing is kind of rejuvenated now. Energy is critically important. Transportation, with the world moving to more digital sales, the whole logistics side of that. There's some, you know, really new jobs and high growth sectors, which you may have thought, are those really high growth sectors? Yeah, they're becoming high growth sectors again with changing job requirements, and so. You know, that's where, as convener, we see that, and we want to get back and working with partners to try to improve the skills so that those companies in those sectors can actually thrive and get the talent that they need.
Right.
So.
And I would think that mentorship is also a really key part of this whole equation. I mean, my industry is obviously very, very different, but those disparities are also, those racial disparities are also present. So for example, in the stagehand union with theaters and things like that, there might be hundreds of people that are a part of the stagehand union, and on one hand you can count the number of people of color. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that they aren't welcomed into the union. They don't have the skills, therefore, to get those positions in theaters. And so we are working to develop an apprenticeship or a mentor program so that we can welcome more women and more people of color into the union. And also, just across the board in all performing arts areas of work, traditionally, mainstream arts organizations have shut out people of color in leadership roles like marketing and finance and so on. So in our field, at least I'll say at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, as we have worked to fill those positions in marketing, finance, development, which is, you know, writing grants and things like that, we have hired people that are coming from other fields and then had to train them on how to work in the performing arts field because it's different from other industries. So I think, and then that mentorship, that mentor aspect has to be present so that when you hire these people to take on these roles, they don't feel like you've just kind of tossed them into this new world without anyone to guide.
Right.
Let me just share something that's very important for all of us to consider that you really raised, and that's intentionality. Mm-hmm. You must be very intentional about doing this, and you must wear it on your sleeve and be proud of it so that everybody knows it. so that your employers, not employers, but employees believe it. And it is so critical that you're sitting up here with us today. And I'm very serious because it has to come from the top.
Yep.
If it doesn't come from the top, it's just another checkoff. If it isn't a part of the bonus plan, I'm serious. It's just another checkoff, you know, and not I tried. No, but how many did you actually recruit? Did you actually hire?
Right.
You must be intentional, you must be able to measure it, and it has to come from the top.
And I would just add, young people will not, they can't become what they can't see. They can't be what they can't see.
That's right.
And we talk about that a lot at Crossroads. And we are, you know, a lot of what we do is to find that 1% who are in technology so that young people can see this concrete pathway in front of them. They can see that it's possible. And so from a young person's standpoint, they're never going to pursue tech if they don't see a possible way for them to be included there. They're not going to pursue banking if they feel like they're always going to be on the outside. So what do we need to do as we're working with young people? What do we need to do collectively as a community to, you know, put out the welcome sign in more than just words? How can we reach out? How can we develop those mentoring relationships? How can we develop those, you know, nonprofit, for-profit partnerships so that we are creating these concrete pathways forward?
There's a great aspect of our credo where we talk about we want our stakeholders, particularly our colleagues who work at Citizens, to reach their potential, which is, I think, is exactly what you're talking
right.
about. And the communities to reach their potential, our customers to reach their potential. So, you know, as you say, you feel great as you're going up and you're meeting new challenges and you're having personal growth. If we can make that happen for everybody, then we've been successful. If we can create basically a society of opportunity where people always have opportunities to keep reaching their potential, I think then we've arrived. It's a long way off in the future, but we got to start now. So,
I like the term society of opportunity.
yeah.
I'll use that. I'll give you credit the first time.
You can take it.
I'll give you credit the first time. After that, did you hear what Esther Bush said?
And that takes us to the next question, actually. This is a great segue. The opportunity gap and lack of access to education was an issue before the pandemic, and now analysts report that the gap of opportunity is even wider. How should we think about addressing that to ensure that all have the opportunity to be a part of the workforce of the future? And we've spoken on that, but if you have any other thoughts, and I'll start with Esther, Stief.
Thanks. So, as you all know, people experience the pandemic differently. I experienced it through the eyes of all these teenagers and their families, but then also their peers. And the gap in what was available, what young people had access to, was vast. It's always been there, but the pandemic shone a light. You had students who were not in school for months. You had families who did not have access to the internet. So it didn't matter if they had technology, they didn't have good internet service. They were not learning. You had students who have disappeared from school. This impacts us all. This is our workforce of tomorrow. So what do we do about that? And how do we build the partnerships that you spoke of so that we create the safety net and point these young people in the right direction? You know, none of these children don't want to learn. They're all curious. They're all engaged. They're all full of potential. We have failed them. Our systems have failed them. The students at Crossroads, they were caught in the safety net because they were attached to our program. They were attached to schools that had systems in place to support them, and to adults who were there to mentor them and to support their family and provide resources. That didn't happen for everybody. what does that look like? And, how do we take this as a moment of opportunity? Because I can go on and on about how awful the gap was. How do we take this then as an opportunity? What can we take and say, all right, here's a way to make things better? What can we do with the virtual learning? What can we do with the learning hubs that have taken place in communities? How can we foster the relationships that developed out of necessity during the pandemic to continue in a very new way to point young people on the right path? There's a lot that can be made better. There's also a higher ed, and I'm not speaking on behalf of higher ed, but since we're a college access program, this is something that I'm constantly thinking about and talking about. We're headed towards a crisis. There are 750,000 fewer college students this fall than there were in the fall of 2019.
Wow.
A lot of people have said, forget it. There was just an article in I think the Wall Street Journal in August about how young men in particular are just saying, forget it, we're out. We also know that those 750,000 who discontinued their education, they're predominantly poor, they're predominantly students of color. So we have these opportunities to build in programs like you're talking about that really say, okay, here, college may not be for you. You may feel disconnected. You may not see an end to your pathway. I have something for you.
I think, building on that point, parents worked really hard, were willing to go into massive debt to send their kids to college and get a nice white-collar job behind a desk, which isn't for everybody. So I think the opportunity is to marshal some of those folks into some great careers where there's a lot of demand right now, and then have the parents and society at large say, you know what, my son's a welder, or my son's a logistics manager, or drives a truck going cross country to deliver important goods. Those are good vocations, and they may fit better for some people than college, but we haven't really moved enough as a society to value those types of professions the way they should be valued.
Well, they're moving to value them now because they can't get
They can't.
they can't get the things they want because they're all sitting out in the water somewhere. And can we get truck drivers? And can we get this and that and the other? I want to underscore everything you said. I can say ditto. And thank you very much for being where you are. With the Urban League, it's very interesting. I have 3 family support centers, and we have set up hotspots in our parking lots. With the Department of Human Services, we have taken flexible money in some of our grants and bought computers to loan to families. We have called some of our funders and said, can we just move a little bit of money from this line to that line, because we need to be able to reach out and assist these families. And so my message for all of us, I don't care if you're corporate, if you're nonprofit, if you're education, if you're not working, if you're retired, it is all of our responsibility to reach out and help our community. This is where you live. To help our community, to make sure that our children are getting everything they need, to make sure their parents are better equipped for the opportunities. And I'll be the first one to agree with you to say everybody does not need and should not have a college degree, because look at plumbers. This morning on the news, they were talking about non-traditional truck drivers. They interviewed women. Back in 1980, I placed some of the first female truck drivers, police officers, women in non-traditional jobs. we need to help each other across the board. And it's about access. It's about development, promotion, believing in, crossing over. And it doesn't matter to me what your credentials are, as long as you can do it. And I am so pleased that places like the United Way has partnerships where they said, Urban League and 3 other organizations, could you refer some mothers to us that you believe are on a good track for providing what their family needs? And they had asked us to send 3 people, 3 women. They would get an extra $500 a month if they continued along the right path. They liked the 3 we referred so much, they called us. I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling this, but they called us and said, Urban League, would you send us 2 more? And so there are all kind of opportunities for us to educate, support, promote. Let's try some new things. But please be a part of the problem. Take that back. Please be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem.
Exactly right.
Thank you. Correct me.
I could just underscore one thing that we've all talked about is the access to Wi-Fi and broadband.
Yeah.
It really exposed a gap during the pandemic. And, kids in schools, it was the difference between if someone could transition to work virtually at home while taking care of their kids, but it was also if you needed basic needs services. And I'm just going back over a year. Prior to coming here, I was the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Workforce Development in Wisconsin. So I oversaw unemployment insurance. And the amount of people who did not have sufficient Wi-Fi or broadband, who could not access their unemployment insurance was phenomenal. And you couldn't pick up the phone. I mean, every state was tested like this. The system wasn't big enough to handle the load that was coming in. So you couldn't pick up a phone and call it in. You needed that access. So you see a lot of states and municipalities are now, working on Wi-Fi policies that, folks can have free access to Wi-Fi. And I think that, if there's one takeaway, we still have that exposure right now, and folks should be working on those policies to make sure that that we don't come across that gap again. Because we're not out of the pandemic, we're still in it. And what we're learning is that the pandemic has controlled these things, not necessarily us. So that is something very much that we still need to work on in regards to closing that gap.
Right. And I mean, it's obviously extremely dire and the situation. And you've all talked about, and you especially, Esther Bush, have made a point of saying that this dire situation is an opportunity. So the next question, we're going to start with you, Bruce. What are some best practices to accomplish all of the things that you've talked about today? And you've discussed some. You've also discussed some of the strategies that you've put in place. But Bruce, what are
Well,
your
I'll go
thoughts
back
on
to what
this?
Esther said, and for us as a company, it starts with tone at the top and culture. And we've had a culture for years focused on customer, colleague, community, and we view banking as a noble profession. So we want to attract the kind of people who come work for us, who view the bank as an opportunity to help people during their regular day job, but also have the platform to get involved and to volunteer. I think we've been very successful at that. Our volunteer hours are up threefold over 7 years from when we did our IPO. We've got 67% increase on the people serving on nonprofit boards. We've got great advocates here like Dan for workforce development who recognize that unlocks the potential of communities to get people better jobs. And we're kind of not just attacking it really based on jobs and income, but we have the platform to make grants to organizations and nonprofit partners. We have a balance sheet to make loans into LMI communities on favorable terms and to promote economic development, to promote housing, the kind of build out of housing that people can afford. And so, that's where we're focused, is living up to our own credo, our own values, starting at the top, but trying to infuse that into the ethos of how we're running the bank.
Anyone else want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what Esther said earlier. This is about intentionality. Citizens as a partner in BankWorks wasn't something that they had to do. They intentionally saw a problem and reached into nonprofits to solve it. The engagement of boards, not just private companies on nonprofit boards, but vice versa.
Absolutely.
So all of those things are just intentional relationships and engagement between each other to understand that nonprofits stabilize communities. All these situations we've talked about today were about how nonprofits stepped in, and that's through recreation, through college exposure to post-secondary education, the career pathways, and the fact that private businesses involved with that is an intentional relationship that needs to be replicated throughout the city.
And I'd just add that I would really just encourage everyone to view education as part of the solution, not as something that's divorced from or separate from your workforce, because your future workforce, your workforce of today, you can invest in that now. And that pays dividends later. It pays dividends right now in the lives of young people through, caring about educational issues. It's all of our problems, and it's all of our opportunity.
I have something to say. Pittsburgh is my hometown, and it excites me because we can cure all of our problems with who we have right here. We have the corporate community. Look at our educational institutions are world-renowned. Look at the intellectual capital that we have. Look at IT and its growth. Hospitals, healthcare. We have enough intellect, wealth, opportunity right here in the city of Pittsburgh and its surrounding communities. If we were just bold enough to say we are going to use all of the talent of our citizenry to make Pittsburgh one of the best places for every citizen here to live. What that's going to take is intentionality, bolder steps from the leadership, not with a statement of, I did that because, but with a statement with shoulders back and saying, this is what's appropriate for my community, for our community. Can we deal with the issue of race, of potential, and all of those things out loud and save our children? Oh my God. I'm a former high school teacher, college administrator, and as we speak today, I have to go back and work on a statewide effort. Did you know that the state of Pennsylvania has the lowest number of teachers of color in the country? I'll stick a pin in it right there.
I'd love to hear more about that. I'm a former teacher as well, and even in 92, we were talking about that. So the question is, how do you attract more people? And I would say in our case, in the arts and nonprofits, my colleagues we're always talking about how do we build a pipeline for the next generation of leaders. And so in our case, as I mentioned previously, my goal, I guess, my intentionality is really to create the next generation of finance, marketing, development professionals, and even the person that would take on my role in the future, because traditionally those opportunities have not been made available to people of color. I won't say that women have been shut out, but people of color, even someone in my role, on one hand, you could count the number of African-American men or women that are in a leadership role as president and CEO of a performing arts, a mid-sized performing arts organization. So it's always been pre-pandemic. Now we're still in that situation. So with a lot of arts organizations that are larger, they are scrambling because they are responding to the racial pandemic, right? They're responding and hiring people to fill various roles without previous experience at a performing arts center, because we haven't been given those opportunities in the past. But we've been doing that all along. And so I think it's really important, especially as we talk about the arts and how the arts has really nourished people during the pandemic. You know, all of the movies that you watched, and the music that you've listened to when you were stuck at home, it kind of got you through. So the people that are creating the art are extremely important, the artists, but the people that are creating the ways to distribute that or present that to all of you and to our audiences are also very important, and need people that have that cultural, I guess, memory or familiarity with diverse audiences to continue to present it. So, last words, and we will talk, we'll start with Bruce. Last words for our group, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
Okay, I think that we're at a unique moment in time here, that many of these issues people have been working on for a long time, but I think the pandemic brought them out and shone a real light on the need for more opportunity, the need for more social justice and equality of opportunity across all races, and just the need for companies to really move this up in their agendas, to be right at the top of their agendas. And so I'm excited. The CEOs that I associate with all get it, and they're all trying to be forces for positive change. So I think we're at a good moment, and I don't see this slipping back down the list of priorities. I think it's going to stay front and center for years to come.
Esther Bush.
Opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. Be bold. Meet America where it is right now. Don't apologize for it. Don't say my ancestors had nothing to do with it. Just deal with it today and make change. There are so many opportunities to make change. I am not asking anybody to re-review what happened in the 60s. George Floyd happened not too long ago. What happened in DC not too long ago? At my capital? I said, man, how many times have I been to DC and had to go through all of these protocols before I could get in to see my senator or my congressperson? Come on. I just ask you to take your blinders off, to take your filters off, and deal with the reality of where America is, of where Pittsburgh is, and embrace the power that you have in your seat, with your title, with your influence, with family, work, and community, and do something to make us all better. within your own power. That'll be enough to make significant change. And I want to thank citizens for the opportunity of being here today, because this is so critical, and it's not that difficult. Just do your part.
Esther, Stief.
Wow, that's hard to follow. Yes, to everything. I would add, I've got 157 amazing, resilient teenagers who are going to enter the workforce in 4 years, 8 years. They have looked around, they've seen what you've talked about, the world's a scary place. We've handed them, like, let's take the blinders off. We haven't fixed this.
That's right.
And we're handing it to the young people. What can we do to build them up, to give them the skills? Offer internships. We have had great success with high school students going in and doing internships during the summer. Amazingly productive relationships that have gone beyond just the soft skills that we all value, to kind of lifelong mentorship. There's opportunity all around you. So find that place where you can contribute.
Yeah.
Robert Cherry.
First, I want to thank citizens for giving us this platform, this opportunity to talk about these important issues. And the pandemic has definitely given us all a different lens to look through, and it is without those filters. So just very hopeful for the future, because we are looking at things for what they are right now. And over the past 20 years, we've all been involved in different initiatives, and we've called them different things, and 5 years later, it's called something else. So very hopeful about the future. But definitely, I think what we're all learning is that we can't say the roof is leaking anymore and then invest in buckets. We have to actually look at problems for what they are and engage in them in this type of conversation. And that's why this is so helpful.
That was fantastic. Let's take some questions from the audience. Yes.
There's been a lot of dialogue about systemic racism, but I'm a big advocate of bringing awareness to unconscious bias. Do you think that there's enough dialogue, or are enough people leaning in on that more subtle form of racism, which is an unconscious bias, whether it's a community, workforce, etc.?
Anyone want to take that question?
Short answer is no. That is a conversation that should be included in every workplace. And like I said earlier, these conversations now are about stabilizing your workforce more than any other time. Mm-hmm. Because you watch, like I said before, you're watching the front door and the back door. Equity is one thing. That's the process of making things equal. But that inclusiveness is a different level. That's asking people how valued they feel in a certain place. And people have the opportunity right now who don't feel valued in the workplace to look other places and ask different questions. Mm-hmm. So definitely that conversation needs to happen more. It needs to happen in the workplace, and in the school systems, in all the spaces that we congregate.
Including home.
Including home.
I think at Citizens, as you're aware, we've certainly focused on that issue, and I think you can get at it through training. And so I think we've made an investment there. We brought in outside speakers to help educate us better about that risk and to be alert to it and make sure that we're really being open and inclusive in terms of our perspectives. We have set up these business resource groups that give people a venue to collect and have these important discussions so that we can be better listeners and try to become better positive change agents. So each company can do what it can. It can really start to change things if all companies go along that path and try to make change. But I would agree with you. We're not there yet, but it's a work in progress.
Mm-hmm. We're very fortunate in the arts to be able to work with artists that address that through their work. So Paul Robeson, the legendary actor, activist said, use your art as a weapon, right? And so you have artists that are writing plays, that are creating music, that are using visual arts to provide opportunities for people to respond to their art and have those conversations themselves as a reflection, or in settings where they're able to ask questions and have those discussions in judgment-free zones. So it's an exciting time. I think a lot of artists have responded to all of the issues that we're talking about today, and giving people an opportunity to, instead of maybe doing it at work, they can respond with their families or with their close friends in an informal setting and amongst artistic offerings.
Yep.
Any other questions? Yes.
How can smaller companies prepare ourselves to be good partners or partnering with workforce development companies and your clients? And also, is there transitional support offered to the clients that we hire for you guys?
So I'll take that. Transitional support, yes. So you should definitely engage with us, talk about OJTs, that on-the-job training that we can help support, and that is especially helpful to small businesses. But definitely we have a industry partnership division at Partner for Work, where we work with I think it's 11 different sectors. I'm new, so but I think it's 11 different sectors. So please reach out, give me your card after this, and I can make sure that we can make that connection.
I also have to add that I'm extremely proud of the work the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh has done in meeting applicants where they are, in terms of providing the outreach and support that is necessary without judgment, and assisting those individuals. We have done such things as, I talked about the 56 partnerships, but we have helped individuals, and I can give you names and social security numbers of individuals that was earning $7.40 an hour when they came to us, and now they're earning $45 an hour because we put them through a training program. And we have partnerships with training programs that an individual might say, I went through all this training, but I don't have money for steel-toed boots. The Urban League will buy your steel-toed boots. You're going to work. And I'm saying that with a great deal of pride, because things that sound so simplistic, and we are a big partner with Partners for Work. The Urban League will assist you also while you're going through training. You're having trouble with your rent? Oh, the Urban League can help you with your rent, with your mortgage, with your utilities, et cetera, et cetera. And so, of course, you must qualify. Most of these programs are government funded or have other criteria. But I'm exceptionally proud of the work the Urban League has done and can do to meet applicants where they are and give them the support that they need to move forward. My last comment on that will be, we have a seniors in community service program. The federal government says you have to be 55 or older to be a senior, not my definition. So a lot of y'all in here qualify. But it's very, very important, and I feel so good talking about the pandemic. We trained 55-year-old and older applicants that never knew how to turn a computer on. And they are awesome now, and employers are hiring them. And so I'm saying it's very important for applicants to know, don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. Come to us. We will work with you, meeting you where you are. What we're interested in is the passion, the interest, the I want to. And we will help get you there.
I will say I can attest to that. I had, you guys offered a workshop over a year ago. I had a lot of contractors that worked with me, and I couldn't pay them with checks because they didn't have bank accounts. And you guys had a workshop where they just had to come with a driver's license. and
That's
have a
right.
bank account.
That's right.
And they're still working with me, and I can pay them with company checks.
Wonderful. One last
Financial
question.
literacy is critical.
No, I think there's one last question.
Yeah, so thank you for what a terrific panel, and to Esther, your great comment was on seniors and reskilling. The question is career awareness and young people, and oftentimes it's as early as sixth grade. You know, young people can aspire to great careers that they have no visibility to. How are we doing in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County and in Pittsburgh proper, and what are those opportunities where companies like Citizens can help on that front?
So most students who come into our program, they come in as 8th graders, and they want to be professional athletes and doctors.
Rappers.
And yeah, okay. So to your point, how do you open up the world to them, to show them okay, let's say we are going to be a doctor. There are lots of different kinds of doctors, right? And there's all kinds of other opportunities within healthcare. How do we open those doors? And so it really is through programs where businesses or professional organizations will come in and invest and spend time. So, for example, at Citizens, you'd come in, these are the jobs that are available within the banking field. These are the pathways that we've all traveled to get to where we are today. These are the kinds of skills and interests that kind of match up with the job that I do every day. And it's helping young people to understand that the things that they like to do right now and the things that they're passionate about can be translated into workplace skills, and being able to see those connections. And take some, so rather than the rapper or the professional athlete or the doctor that they see on the screen, it's someone that they actually can get to know and that they can talk with. And that's been, it's very successful, because then you have young people who are going into a 2-year program, they're going into college, and they have a really specific idea of why they're there and what they are getting prepared for, rather than spending 2 or 4 years just kind of hanging out, getting some kind of degree, and then making those decisions, as a 22 or 23-year-old.
Yeah, I need your rappers, because rappers are writers, right? They're promoters,
Right.
they're marketers.
Yeah.
I need them, so let's talk after. Okay, well, there's 2, so we'll take the 2 questions really quickly. Yes.
So you talk about impressions with young children. So we have Bring Your Child to Work Day, right? Do you use that in your program to send them out to companies to spend some time to get that exposure into the workplace?
If they have parents who are, in that workplace, certainly.
Well, I guess I was looking outside of the parents. So
Right.
mentors to come in and just spend time in a real work environment and say, this is what we do on a daily basis.
We have an internship program where we place our students in the summer, and they are assigned, or they choose a project, and they work with someone within that workplace. It's not just a one-time visit. It's a more intensive situation. We also take young people into the workplace. We'll go on site visits. We basically call it like emerging career academies, and we look at areas that are hiring, and we take young people in to meet with professionals.
The Urban League has a similar program at Westinghouse High School and in the Hill District. Mentors are critical, and we literally go into the school and sit in a classroom with them. We're one of the few organizations that are permitted to go inside the school and offer our programming.
Last question.
Thank you. This is a separate topic, but it's related. And Bruce, you opened the door for this question when you talked about citizens' other priority being savings is a major barrier for down payment and closing costs as it relates to individuals trying to purchase their home. It's a very specific problem as it relates to black home buyers. Workforce development and increased earnings potential are certainly a major component of solving that problem. But Bruce, I would ask what additional assistance can Citizens Bank lend to making sure that the workforce of the future has a fair shot at entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, dealing with the supply side of that is part of where we focus, and so making the financing available for appropriate housing that is kind of first rung type home ownership. I think we're quite good at that. The flip side of that, to your question, is what about the folks where the demand's going to come from and getting the requisite savings to kind of get on that ladder. There are some great government programs that facilitate that initial purchase, and so we try to match up buyers with those programs. We also have specific grants that we make around down payment assistance that we just put into our community budget as well. So, it's the combination of, again, working with the government programs, but then also using the, capital that we've amassed and to reinvest back into the communities, and that has to be balanced against other priorities, but it is quite important, and the whole thing is a loop that you want to get going in a virtual circle to get people employed and then get them in housing that's appropriate, and they get on that ladder and then they live the American dream. So very focused on that.
And I'm sorry, but the Urban League is a comprehensive social service organization, and our housing department is one of our largest departments. And from the National Urban League perspective, financial literacy and home ownership is way up here. And so we literally have clients that we've worked with for 2 and 3 years to get them ready for home ownership. And I will say that the banking community has been our partner in providing support, workshops, etc.
Yep.
Home ownership is critical for Americans and definitely for Black folk, because that's where the majority of our wealth is. It is for all Americans, but especially the African American community. And over the past 2 decades, our home ownership numbers has decreased. That's a whole nother workshop. But we really do appreciate and support and try to encourage financial literacy and home ownership. So I appreciate the question, and I definitely appreciate what you all do in that area.
I'm with Motorworks Western Pennsylvania.
Hello.
I can attest to how exceptional the Urban League is in that space. Citizens Bank has supported our organization since you entered the market, so thank you for that.
Give that man a bonus.
Thank you.
All right. We want to thank citizens for presenting this insightful and lively discussion on workforce development. And on behalf of citizens, I'd like to thank our panelists, Bruce Van Saun, Esther Bush, Esther Stief, and Robert Cherry. And for those of you that are joining us virtually, have a wonderful day. Those of you that are here, please enjoy some breakfast, and let's get an opportunity to meet, talk about what we've heard today. Thank you very much. I'm Janis. Burley.